Most people think the Roman Empire collapsed because of barbarian invasions, armies at the gates, political chaos, civilization slowly falling apart. But long before Rome collapsed on the battlefield, it collapsed in its money. And the chain reaction started with something surprisingly small. One emperor, one palace, and one decision to secretly dilute the empire's silver coins. An idea that governments throughout history keep rediscovering. The belief that you can create wealth simply by creating more money. At first, almost nobody noticed. But that tiny financial trick triggered something dangerous, an inflation spiral that would quietly eat away at savings, destroy trust in money, and destabilize the Roman economy for the next 3 centuries. So today, we're decoding one of history's most fascinating economic collapses, how a single monetary shortcut helped bring down the most powerful empire the world had ever seen. To understand how Rome's economy was broken, we have to go back to a time before the rot set in. In the early days of the Roman Empire, under its first emperor, Augustus, the economy was a model of stability. Its backbone was a silver coin called the denarius. For centuries, this coin, about the size of a modern nickel, was the trusted currency across an empire that stretched from Britain to the Middle East. It was worth about a day's wages for a skilled craftsman, and crucially, it was made of nearly pure silver. Augustus had set up a monetary system where the coins had real intrinsic value. A denarius wasn't just a token. Its worth came directly from the precious metal it contained. This confidence was the lubricant for a vast engine of trade that brought immense wealth to Rome. Grain from Egypt, spices from the east, metals from Spain, it all flowed into the capital, paid for with reliable silver and gold. This system, built on trust and real value, funded the legions, built the aqueducts, and sustained a period of unprecedented peace and prosperity, known as the Pax Romana. The money was honest and the economy was strong. But this stability depended on 2 things: a steady supply of precious metals from conquered lands, and emperors who didn't spend more than they had. For a while, Rome had both, but in the year 54 AD, a new emperor came to power, a man whose appetites and ambitions would far outstrip the empire's resources. His name was Nero, and his reign would mark the beginning of the end for Rome's sound money. Hidden force number 1, the original sin, Nero's golden ambition. Nero's early reign was fine, but his extravagant tastes and grand ambitions soon put a huge strain on the Roman treasury. He spent lavishly on games, festivals, and public works, all to win the love of the people. But his ultimate dream was to build a palace so magnificent it would be the wonder of the world. He wanted to tear down a huge part of Rome to build a personal city palace he'd call Neropolis. The Senate, horrified by the cost, said no. Then, in the summer of 64 AD, disaster struck. A fire broke out near the Circus Maximus. In the densely packed wooden city of Rome, fires were common, but this was different. Fanned by a strong wind, the flames raged for 9 days. When the smoke finally cleared, 10 of Rome's 14 districts were in ruins. Rumors immediately swirled that Nero himself had started the fire to clear the land for his palace. Historians still debate it, but the public believed it. True or not, Nero seized the opportunity. In the ashes of the old city, he began building his dream project, the Domus Aurea, the Golden House. It was a palace complex of unparalleled luxury, with artificial lakes, revolving ceilings, and rooms encrusted with gold and jewels. The cost was staggering. Faced with rebuilding the city and funding his own vanity project, on top of expensive military campaigns like the Boudicca Revolt in Britain, Nero was in a financial bind. Raising taxes was too unpopular. The flow of gold from new conquests had slowed to a trickle, so Nero turned to a secret, insidious solution. He ordered the Roman mint to commit a quiet fraud. He became the first emperor to systematically debase the currency. The plan was simple. Before Nero, the silver denarius was nearly pure, around 97 to 98% silver. His reform reduced it to about 92 to 93%. This meant that from the same amount of silver, the mint could produce more coins, melt down 10 old coins, and you could mint almost 11 new ones. That extra coin was pure profit for the state. To the average Roman, the new coins looked and felt the same, but they were intrinsically worth less. This was the original sin of Rome's economy. Nero had found a way to create money from nothing, a short-term fix that paid for his palace. But in doing so, he showed every future emperor a secret backdoor to the treasury. It was a poison that, once in the system, would prove impossible to remove. Hidden force number 2, the slippery slope of debasement. Nero's financial trick didn't cause an immediate collapse. The initial drop in silver was small enough that most people people didn't notice. Trade continued, the legions got paid, and Nero's golden house was built. But a dangerous precedent had been set. Nero proved that when an emperor needed cash, the purity of the coin could be sacrificed. This became a tool his successors would use again and again, with increasing desperation. The quick fix became a chronic addiction. The century after Nero saw a slow, steady decline. Emperors like Trajan and Antoninus Pius, often remembered as good rulers, still chipped away at the currency's purity to fund their own wars and building projects. Each reduction was small, a few percentage points here and there, a gradual slide down a very slippery slope. By the year 150 AD, the denarius was down to about 83% silver. A century after that, around 250 AD, it had fallen to just 50%. What was driving this? The empire's expenses were constantly growing, but its income wasn't. Rome had stopped expanding, which meant the plunder from new territories had dried up. Yet, the costs of running the empire were enormous. The military was by far the biggest expense. By the 3rd century, the army had grown to almost 500,000 men who were demanding higher pay, especially as they noticed their wages were buying less and less. To keep the soldiers, the kingmakers of the empire, loyal, emperors had to find the money, and debasement was the easiest way. This created a vicious cycle. The government would mint more low purity coins to pay the army. This flood of new, less valuable money caused prices to rise, what we call inflation. As prices for food and goods went up, the soldiers' wages were effectively cut, so they'd demand another raise, forcing the emperor to debase the currency even more. Emperor Caracalla, for instance, gave the army a huge pay raise, and then, to afford it, introduced a new coin in 215 AD called the Antoninianus. It was supposed to be worth 2 denarii, but it contained only about 1.5 times the silver. It was a blatant scam, and the public wasn't fooled. People naturally preferred the older, purer coins. According to Gresham's law, the principle that bad money drives out good, people began hoarding the valuable coins and spending the new, debased ones as fast as they could. This made the bad money circulate even faster and worsened the inflation. Trust in the currency, the very foundation of the economy, was beginning to crumble. What started with Nero's selfish desire for a golden palace had become a systemic disease. The empire was caught in an inflationary spiral, and the worst was yet to come. We're about to enter the most chaotic period in Roman history, where this economic sickness spirals completely out of control. If you're finding this story fascinating, take a moment to subscribe and hit that like button. It helps us tell more stories like this one. Now, let's witness the full-blown collapse. Hidden force number 3, the crisis of the 3rd century, hyperinflation and chaos. The slow decline that began with Nero exploded into a full-blown catastrophe in the period known as the crisis of the 3rd century, from 235 to 284 AD. This half-century was a perfect storm of civil war, foreign invasions, and complete economic meltdown. The poison that had been dripping into the empire's veins for 2 centuries now caused total systemic shock. Politically, the empire descended into anarchy. In just 49 years, more than 20 so-called barracks emperors seized power, most of them generals proclaimed by their legions who would rule for only a few months before being assassinated. How did each new emperor secure his throne? By promising enormous bonuses to the soldiers. With the treasury empty and no time for real reform, they had only one way to pay: debase the currency at a frantic, unprecedented rate. By the 260s, the situation became absurd. The Antoninianus, which once had some silver, was now little more than a bronze coin with a deceptive silver wash. The silver content dropped to as low as 2% and eventually to a mere 0.5%. The government was minting millions of essentially worthless coins and flooding the economy with them. The result was hyperinflation. Prices didn't just rise, they exploded, skyrocketing by an estimated 1,000% across the empire. Imagine a loaf of bread that cost 1 coin in the morning, costing 10 by the evening. People's life savings, held in what they thought was valuable silver, were wiped out almost overnight. The economic historian Joseph Peden noted that the price of wheat multiplied hundreds of times over during this century. The very concept of money began to break down. Why would a merchant sell a real good, like a sack of grain, for coins they knew would be worthless tomorrow? many simply stopped. Trade, especially over long distances, became paralyzed. An empire-wide economy that had been one of Rome's greatest achievements fractured into isolated local regions. People were forced back to inefficient barter, trading goods directly for other goods. A massive step backward. The social fabric tore apart. Wealthy landowners could protect themselves. Land, after all, is a real asset. But for everyone else, soldiers, craftsmen, small merchants, it was ruin. The crisis fueled immense social unrest. The state, desperate for revenue but unable to use its own worthless coins, began demanding taxes in kind. That is, in actual goods like grain and livestock, or in forced labor. In effect, the government was admitting its own money was garbage. The deception that Nero had begun had reached its logical, horrifying conclusion. The Roman currency was dead. The economy was in shambles. It would take an emperor of iron will to even try to pull Rome back from the abyss. Hidden Force 4, the failed fix, Diocletian's Edict. Out of the chaos, a powerful emperor, Diocletian, rose to power in 284 AD. He was a ruthless reformer, determined to put the broken empire back together. He stabilized the frontiers and reorganized the government, but his biggest challenge was the shattered economy. To fight hyperinflation, Diocletian first tried to introduce new, high-purity coins around 294 AD, including a pure silver coin called the Argenteus. But the attempt backfired spectacularly. After decades of being cheated, the public had zero trust. As soon as people got their hands on these genuinely valuable coins, they hoarded them. They vanished from circulation, and the old, worthless coins kept being used, keeping inflation raging. Frustrated, Diocletian blamed the crisis not on centuries of government policy, but on human greed. He believed greedy merchants were responsible for the outrageous prices. So, in 301 AD, he enacted one of the most disastrous economic decrees in history, the Edict on Maximum Prices. This was an unprecedented attempt at absolute state control over the economy. The edict set a legal maximum price for over 1,000 goods, services, and wages across the entire empire. It covered everything from wheat and beans to the cost of a haircut. The penalty for violating the edict? Death. The result was an immediate and total disaster. The prices set by the edict were artificially low, often below what it cost to produce the goods. Faced with selling at a loss or being executed, merchants simply pulled their goods from the markets. The very items the edict was supposed to make affordable disappeared entirely. A massive black market flourished as people traded illegally just to survive. The contemporary writer Lactantius described bloodshed in the streets as people fought over scarce goods. The edict was a catastrophic failure because it treated the symptoms, not the cause. The problem wasn't greedy merchants. It was that the money itself had been destroyed. Price controls can never work when the currency has collapsed. Realizing the abject failure, the government quietly let the edict fade away. Diocletian's bold attempt to command the economy back to health had only made things worse, proving that not even the absolute power of a Roman emperor could defy the basic laws of economics. The damage was too deep. Conclusion: the story of Rome's economic fall has many chapters. Barbarian invasions, political instability, and plagues all played their part. But the seeds of destruction sown by Nero in 64 AD grew into a poison tree that choked the empire from within. His decision to debase the currency to pay for his palace wasn't a single mistake. It was the beginning of a fatal policy that spanned 3 centuries. Each act of debasement by successive emperors was a short-term fix that created a much larger long-term problem. It was a slow, agonizing process of destroying public trust. By the time of the 3rd century crisis, the Roman people had learned a hard lesson. Their money was a lie. This loss of faith paralyzed trade, destroyed the middle class, and forced the economy back to a primitive state. Diocletian's failed edict was the final proof that once trust in a currency is gone, no amount of force can restore it. The ultimate legacy of this 300-year financial crime was a hollowed-out Western empire. Its economy was fractured, its people impoverished, and its government unable to reliably fund the legions needed to defend its borders. When the final military collapse came, the economic foundations had already crumbled to dust. The fall of Rome teaches us a timeless lesson. The health of a civilization is tied to the integrity of its money. An economy, no matter how powerful, cannot survive on deception. Trust, once lost, is nearly impossible to regain, and without it, even the greatest empires can rot from the inside out. Hope you enjoyed decoding Rome's economy's collapse. Stay smart, stay curious. Considering subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.